Hello, everybody. This is Lucas Skinner from At the Buzzer.
This is Christian Sovereign from At the Buzzer.
Here at the Buzzer, we plan on bringing you one NBA-related episode per week, where we bring you the latest NBA news and our opinions.
You can find us on Twitter at the Buzzer Pod, where we will keep you updated on new episodes.
We are excited to announce that the first guest on At the Buzzer is going to be John Hammond, the general manager of the Orlando Magic.
2010 Executive of the Year, and we will ask him about his current situation with the Orlando Magic and other questions about his career.
Hey, guys.
Hey, thanks for coming on.
Okay.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's really amazing for you to be our first guest.
Yeah. All right. Here we are.
Yeah, well, first off, the first question, if we could ask you, I would like to ask if it was, always your goal to be in the front office, to, be a general manager, or if it just the pieces just kind of fell into place as your career unfolded.
My goal as a kid growing up was to be a high school teacher and coach. That's really what I wanted to do initially when I was growing up.
Another thing that I was wondering was about with your new team, the Orlando Magic, or your newest team. I was wondering how you like the development of your young core with guys like Fultz, Bamba, Isaac, and the newly drafted Chuma Okeke.
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of look at our team, and it's like we have two separate teams to a certain extent. We have veteran guys like DJ Augustine, Evan Fournier, and Evan's not old. Evan's only 26. A guy like Nikola Vucevic, and Vuce, I think, is just 28 or 29, so not an old player himself. But you take and Terrence Ross, and I'll put Aaron Gordon in that group as well. And Aaron just turned 24, I think, a few days ago. So that's one group we have, and we kind of call that our veteran group. And then beyond that, you look at some of the names you mentioned of the young guys, with Jonathan Isaac, Markelle Fultz, Mo Bamba. Now, as you mentioned, Chuma Okeke, and some other young players on our roster, and as I mentioned, Markelle Fultz is new to our team this year. But so we almost look like we have two separate groups. But putting those two together and meshing those groups together is the job of Steve Clifford, our head coach.
For sure. Recently, I saw you guys had picked up the team option for Markelle Fultz, which is about $12 million. And I was just wondering, because I'm a huge Markelle Fultz fan, I was wondering what your goals are for incorporating him into the future.
Well, look, Markelle has been terrific since he's been with us over the last few months, and he's had a good summer, and he's worked extremely hard, and his energy's been good, and his effort has been good, and I think he's excited about the upcoming season, and we're very excited for him.
So something that I was wondering about for the offseason with you guys re-signed guys like Terrence Ross, and you signed Al-Farouq Aminu from the Portland Trail Blazers, and bringing back Vucevic was a big deal as he had a really good season and was the first All-Star, I believe, for the Magic since Dwight Howard. So I was wondering if you could talk about your guys' offseason a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question when you talk about our team, because we have a big turnaround last year. I don't want to misspeak and say it was maybe a 17-game swing, but we have a chance to get into the playoffs last year. And you do something like that, and you have a turnaround season like that, when the team hasn't been in the playoffs for quite a few years before that. One of the things you look at, you say, well, we don't want to take a step back. So with that being said, you look at a guy like Vooch, and you say, man, you'd love to be able to bring him back if you can. And we were able to do that. And then we said, well, if we're going to sign Booch back, we got to sign Terrence Ross back, or the same. If we're going to sign T. Ross back, we got to sign Booch back. I'm not sure it does a whole lot of good to do one without the other, really, to a certain extent. And then we do that and say, well, what else could we do to help our team, to advance our team and maybe move forward? And so we signed Alfaru Camino as a free agent. So bringing Booch back, bringing T. Ross back, adding Aminu, really all we've done is we just have a lot of continuity right now. And we hope that continuity will help us. For the most part, our core guys, our rotation guys are all back. And so you bring that group back and add Markel Fultz to that group. We think that, we have a chance to be better, and that's our goal. We took our salary structure a little higher than we wanted to overall from a team standpoint. But once again, if we don't do that, more than likely we take a step back and put a really young team on the floor, some of those young names we already talked about. And but overall, with the decisions we made, we feel good about them, and we think we can be very competitive this year.
So to go off of that, knowing that you guys drafted Chuma Akiki, I had heard some things about him possibly using this year for development and going to the G League or something like that, just taking it as kind of like a year to improve and kind of learn the NBA game, I guess. So I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, that's something that we're still working through and trying to make this the best decision for Chuma today and for our organization, and we'll decide that over the next few days, next few weeks.
So, looking at your career, you've won the executive of the year, and you were an NBA champion a while back. I was wondering, what's your highest point of your career? What was your favorite moment of your career, I suppose?
Well, don't make me feel too bad when you say an NBA champion. You say a while back, but that is, I know it's a while back. At your guys' age, you look at 2004, you think that's an eternity. To me, it's not that long ago. But overall, from a league standpoint, it is. But I don't know. For me, just the ability to be a part of this. I think I'm starting my 31st year in the NBA right now, and to have the chance to be a part of the league and have the opportunities that I've had, and been so lucky and so blessed to be given these opportunities, and you get the chance and you try to make the best of them and do a good job for those that have entrusted you to work at the positions that you have. And but look, you mentioned it. Winning the championship is pretty darn neat. To have a chance to be a part of something like that. And I always say we won one. We could have, woulda, should have won two. We went to back-to-back finals, and the Spurs beat us the second year in the finals, but in 2005. But had it right there at the grass. Could have, should have won the second one. But that's special to be able to do something like that. I always talk about my time with Joe Dumars and working with a guy like Joe, who is such an extraordinary guy and a great player. And anytime I mention a guy like Joe Dumars, probably most people in your group don't even know who Joe Dumars is to a certain extent. And, I always tell people that there's three guys in sport have done this. Three guys in sport have been a champion as a player, a champion as a general manager, and are in the Hall of Fame in their sport. Only three guys have done that. One of them is Jerry West, the legendary Jerry West. The other one is John Elway with the Denver Broncos. And the other one is Joe Dumars. So that tells you who this guy is and kind of the elite kind of category that he fits himself into in sport and in the game of basketball. But I had a chance to coach Joe as an assistant coach and be around him. But when we won that championship, we sat in his suite every game, every home game. And sat right next to each other every game. And it was, a moment I'll never forget. As the clock is winding down, we played the Lakers. And as the clock is winding down, and we won it in the fifth game, pardon me. And I remember Joe putting his arm around me and he goes, "Mr. John, you're a champion. You're a world champion, and they can never take that away from you." And man, that was like quite a moment because Joe had won 2 as a player, and to be a part of something like that and win a championship it's neat. Looking back on it, it's even more probably meaningful than going through it.
So, talking about Orlando Magic here, I was wondering how big is that first playoff series in a long time for you guys? How big is that for your young core, knowing that, I mean, you beat the Raptors in the first game, so taking them to 5 games, the eventual champions, I would say that's a pretty big accomplishment for a young team. So how do you see them building off of that this coming season?
Yeah, it's great because we went in there and won game 1 and we thought, holy cow, is this even possible? And they turned it up to another level, obviously to a level of the world champions they turned out to be. But it was great to get in there on the road and get game 1. We were really hoping to get one of those games at home, but we were unable to do that. They closed us out in Toronto. But it's funny because when you talk about the young guys, our team is a young team. You really, DJ Augustine, who started for us last year at the point guard position, I think DJ's 31, maybe something like that, maybe 32. So DJ is more of a veteran, and he's been around some playoff teams. But, you look at a guy like Evan Fournier. He's still a young guy. For him to have a chance to be in the playoffs, I think that was his first playoff experience. Aaron Gordon, his first playoff experience. I'm not sure with Nikola Vucevic. Vuce might have made one in Philly. I'm not sure that he did. I don't think so. I think that might have been his first playoff experience. So even our so-called veteran guys, who, as I keep saying, are still younger players for the most part, for those guys, it was a great experience. Those guys fought, battled, and deserved all those opportunities. But for a guy like Jonathan Isaac to be a part of that, Terrence Ross, it was great for him. Terrence has been in playoff series before, but good for him to get back in. And for Mo Bamba to see that, be a part of it, just overall, just a really, really great experience.
For sure. So when you're looking to build your team, like to take the next step, do you ever look at like analytical or advanced stats, like win shares or value over replacement player or anything along those lines?
Analytics is such a major factor in our world today, in our decision-making process. Just think about this, that when Jeff Weltman was named president of the basketball operations here 2 years ago, and Jeff and I came together, that at that time we basically had one person on our analytic team. I think it was one and maybe an intern. I think was the 2 people that we had. Today we have 7. That's 2 years later. So that staff is growing more than any staff within the basketball operations. And, really, it's two areas that the staffs have increased more than any are analytics and the performance teams. Strength conditioning, the physical therapists, everyone on that side, that those are 2 staffs that have really increased. But getting back to analytics again, it's they do a great job in helping us, preparing us in our decision-making process on the personnel side. And they also do, I think, a great job in supporting our coaching staff and looking at the overall game data that they present to our coach. And I can tell you we have a guy like Steve Clifford as our coach who finds it very beneficial and does use it.
Okay, so something I was wondering was you've drafted and found a lot of, I want to say, hidden gems late in the draft and later on in the draft, like Giannis and Malcolm Brogdon and players like that. So I was wondering if you have a certain draft pick that you take the most pride in or one that you're the most excited about?
Well, it's amazing. You have a chance to connect with so many good people. And usually guys that are drafted in the NBA draft, for the most part, are really good, solid people. That's why they're getting drafted. because they've established themselves not only as player, but as the kind of people you think that you could win with and that you can trust. And so I've had a chance to be around so many special people. But look, I mean, Giannis is an MVP, so I mean, it's, fun to be attached to something like that, and I'm happy for him and happy for all the success he's having and his team is having. But beyond that, I've been around many, many good guys, many great guys, and hard to separate one from the other. You just you say Giannis because he's an MVP.
When we look at your Orlando Magic roster from last season, it appears as though you guys were 24th in points per game, which is in the bottom third of the league. Is there a way you guys think you could bring that up next season, or do you not even think it's necessary to bring it up and that your defense will be enough to win games?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at a guy like Steve Clifford as our coach, and if there's one point of emphasis with him, it's defense. So I think you look at points per game. That's just one data point that you can look at. But you look at our team overall, especially the last second half of the season, as we got in crucial win situations, we became better defensively, and we know as we move forward that for us to be successful, it's going to start and probably end on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, so talking more about your team and defensively, you guys were 5th in allowed points per game, so you just said that Coach Clifford is more defensive-minded, and I was just wondering more about how big of a step that you see your team making defensively. As like you mentioned before, your team is very young and you have a lot of length on the wings with Jonathan Isaac and Wesley Iwundu and guys like that.
Yeah, so I think that we talked about it earlier about our roster and talked about the continuity of the roster. Well, I think the continuity of our defense is going to help as well. Guys have to make an adjustment when they play for a new coach, and a guy like Steve Clifford is very precise on what he teaches and how he teaches it and how he expects our players to execute defensively and play within the proper schemes defensively. So, not as easy as people think, and so I think the fact that he's back as our second-year coach. The fact that the team is coming back for basically the core of it, returning again and knowing and understanding the system much better than they did a year ago at this time. I think adding a guy like Al-Farouq Aminu and he's an excellent defender at the small forward position and the power forward position, so he's going to help us defensively. And you look at a guy like Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan is, oh my gosh, I think probably 20 pounds heavier than he was a year ago at this time. And his ability to defend, and you look at a guy like Mo Bamba and Mo's length, and I think his added strength. But overall, we like our team defensively. And, we think, once again, going back to a guy like Markelle, that give ourselves more size in the backcourt defensively, what that could do for us. So I think we have a chance to improve and be better defensively than we were last year.
When we speak on players like Markelle, do you think that a veteran point guard like DJ Augustine could be a good mentor for him, a good example? Because last year DJ Augustine led the team in offensive fouls drawn and was 14th in the entire league.
DJ, a really remarkable man that you look at his career and look at how many teams he's been on. He's moved quite a bit. And you could say, well, maybe it's because teams really don't value him, and it's really just the opposite. It's because teams value him. Teams know who he is, what kind of man he is, and people want DJ Augustine on their roster. So we were so happy to be able to inherit him. He played extremely well for us last year. A guy that has accepted a role as a starter for most of his career, has been a rotation point guard coming off the bench. But look, DJ has. You talked about it, about his. Think about that, taking charges at that rate, and don't forget his size. That's a little guy taking hits like that. So he's an outstanding guy, the right kind of man that you can win with. He has toughness, and what he does best is shoot the ball. People know you can't leave the guy open, so he always is going to attract the defense. Teams know where he is. They have to be aware of him on the offensive end of the floor because of his ability to make the open three. So a guy that we're really excited about, and yeah, he of course that's easy for him to take a guy like Markel, mentor him, other young guys on our roster. That's who and what he is.
Okay, for sure. So something I was wondering was, I know this is a little different for everyone, but what are things that you look for in a player when you draft them, whether it be talent-wise or like character-wise?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting. I've said this for a lot of years, and people ask about things like that if they've ever asked me, and I always say it was kind of funny that I remember as a college assistant coach when I was recruiting at the collegiate level, and now in the NBA, going out scouting, I would say, certain things never change. The first thing we do is we walk into a gymnasium or we walk into an arena, and what we're looking for is people that can shoot the ball. And you look at the game today, it's amazing the players' overall abilities to shoot the three, and guys with size that can do that. So, you guys know the value of the three-point shot today and what it's done to our game. And so, you're always looking for shooters. In our league, I know the overall game has more small balls being played. The length is still a factor in our league. And you guys mentioned it, the character factor. I remember I had a chance to sit with Aaron Rodgers at one point, and I remember him. I can't remember who they had just re-signed as a free agent. But I mentioned the name of this guy, and he said he made a comment to me that I'll never forget. He goes, it's always more fun to win with good people, and seems like, well, that's obvious, but look, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes to win, you have to take some risks on some people, and there could be maybe risk on character or whatever it could be, or some issues that people have been moved for whatever reason. But I love Aaron's quote on winning with good people. So when you go into the draft, you're trying to get those physical characteristics and skill characteristics, but man, to have the right kind of man, the right kind of people, that's when life gets really fun and really enjoyable.
Speaking on how much of a focal point the three-point shot is in the current NBA, it looks like Terrence Ross was 10th in three-point field goals last year, and he didn't even start a single game, and he still was in the top 10 in the league for three-point field goals. How important is it for having a guy like Terrence Ross?
Well, Steve Clifford, I thought, did a great job with him. I talked about Cliff and on how he is on the defensive end of the floor, and what he demands of the players and playing within the schemes. And basically, you have to do those things or you're going to come out of the game. But with Terrence Ross, it was a little bit different. He gave him a lot more cushion on the defensive end of the floor because we needed him so bad offensively and because he was so effective for us offensively. And the other thing he did with Terrence was that he put him in the game and he went to him immediately and went to him time and time again. So I think Terrence Ross, we're happy to have him back, but I really believe he's happy to be back too, because I think that when you have a coach that believes in you the way Steve Clifford believes in Terrence Ross, that's fun to be in a position like that. So he had a great year for us last year coming off the bench. We're hoping he can do the exact same thing for us again because we're going to need him to be successful.
All right, so to kind of go off that just a little bit, I was wondering a little bit about Aaron Gordon, as you had mentioned earlier how young he is, but he's already been in the league for 5 years. So that's something that I find extremely interesting, as he's still so young, but he's had a lot of experience. So do you still see do you still see him improving and elevating his game as the years go by?
Well, being around some really great players like I had the opportunity to. Some I've had an opportunity to coach as an assistant coach, and some I've had an opportunity to be around in the front office. And the one thing that these guys have taught me is that they're always improving. Every year, what you need to do is you need to go into the off season and say, here's one thing I want to come back. I want to come back better at next year. Maybe something on the physical end, maybe something on the skill end, whatever it might be. But so a guy like Aaron at his age, oh my gosh, no doubt, he has a lot of room for improvement. I think he would be the first one to say that. And Aaron really wants to be a good player. Aaron wants to be a great player. And the first thing is to have that desire in you to be that. And he has that, and he's willing to work. So his game continues to grow, and we're excited about him, moving forward here in the future.
When we look back at Markelle Fultz, a lot of the media has given up on him already, it appears, but he was obviously the number one pick for a reason, and he's the youngest player to record a triple-double, and he did so off the bench. I was wondering what you think the next step for Markelle is.
Get him out on the floor. Just get him out on the floor and give him an opportunity to play. That's, you look like, well, why hasn't it happened so far? It's because he hasn't played. Nothing is more important in this league than player availability. And Markelle hasn't had the good fortune to have that. So the next step for him is just get on the floor, get himself comfortable, and play to his capabilities.
Someone that we have not talked about yet that I had some curiosity on was Kem Birch, as I believe you re-signed him to a 2-year, $6 million deal. I was wondering, because I see his stats and he impacts the game on the defensive end, but being that you already have Mo Bamba and Vucevic, obviously, I was wondering where you see him fitting in with this year's team.
It's interesting when you mention a guy like Kem. It's look, we want to win. We want to win games. Steve Clifford wants to win games as a coach, and our players want to win games as players. So there's nothing given that you deserve opportunities to play. You earn opportunities to play. And, you don't deserve them. You earn them. So, look, last year Mo went down at the end of the season, missed a large grouping of games near the end of the season, and Kem Birch got an opportunity to play, and boy, did he ever make the most of it. He played extremely well. He had a very good offseason, and look, what you want is you want competition at each position. And I think at that center position, we have competition for minutes. That's a good thing. That's a healthy thing. And one of the reasons we have that competition is because of a guy like Kem.
For sure. So, looking at players like Wesley Iwundu and Melvin Frazier, do you see them fitting in, like, maybe the G League this year?
Well, Wes was at the end of the league last year, he was a rotation player for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of some injuries, some other things that happened, we needed Wes, and Wes played well for us last year. I think he got better and improved as the season went along. And a guy like Melvin was just young, and a lot of times it's difficult for rookies. He had opportunity to play some G League minutes, and as we said, there's nothing given here. You go out and you earn your right to play. You earn your right for those minutes. So I would never say a guy like Melvin is going to be in the G League. I hope he's playing for us. I hope he takes some minutes away from one of those guys in our rotation. That means we've just gotten better.
For sure, that makes sense.
Someone I was wondering about is Michael Carter-Williams and where you see him fitting in with this team, as he was a former Rookie of the Year, but it just feels like he hasn't fit in really ever since with any other team. So I was wondering where you see him with your mix of guards with guys like Augustine and Fournier and Fultz.
Right. Well, Michael, we signed him last year, late in the season. He played extremely well for us. One thing Michael can do is Michael really defends well. At his length, he's 6'6", almost 6'7", so he's got good feet. He can keep people in front of him, and his length allows him to challenge shots. He's an excellent rebounder at the point guard spot, excellent defensive rebounder, and he gets a share of offensive rebounds as well. You got to be careful with that, with the defensive balance, but very, very good rebounder. Michael is a steady player with the ball. And look, another guy, he's just continuing to improve. We're really excited about having him back. One thing Michael can do is Michael can guard two positions. really can almost guard three, but he can definitely guard the point guard position and he can guard the shooting guard position. So multiple defenders are very important to have. I expect Michael to have a good year for us.
As we look to wrap things up here, I was wondering if there are any last statements you would like to make, or maybe even questions you would like to ask us.
I have absolutely no questions for you guys, and you guys have been so thorough and so good. You've covered everything that needs to be covered in the last 30 minutes. So, guys, great job, and appreciate the chance to be here with you and be on with you.
For sure. Well, we wish you good luck for the rest of your season with the Orlando Magic, and we hope to you guys a successful season.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the show.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.